In today's video, we are talking about your wrists and we're going to show you exactly how they should move in your backswing. So thank you for joining me here. I am currently in Spain. The golf course that you can see behind me is PGA Catalunya. And I've just been here hosting a golf course for 4 days. That's now finished. And we're going to do some content to help you play better. We are talking specifically about wrists, and we're going to show you how they should move in the backswing. So in today's lesson, you're going to learn about wrist set or wrist cock and how that should happen during the backswing. And you're also going to learn about something called flexion and extension. We're going to talk a little bit more in detail about that, and that's really important to help control the club face. So before we get started, if you're new here, you've not seen one of my videos, it is absolutely free to be a subscriber, and there is a link down below, or there's one at the end of the video. So let's talk about the wrists, because what do the wrists actually do in the golf swing? Well, they enable you to create good speed. We all want that. And they're really quite key in controlling where the club face points. And again, I'm sure we can agree we all want that. So we need to really focus on how those wrists are moving. And as we go through this video, you're probably going to find that there may be some things in your golf swing which you don't quite do correctly if you're maybe not hitting the ball as far as you'd like, or potentially the board is going a little bit more offline. Now this video is going to be part of a very short series. There's going to be another video following where we start to look at what the wrists do in the downswing and through impact. As you can imagine, that's also very important, but this one is more for the backswing. So what does the wrist do? What movements do we have available to us? Well, if I place my lead hand in this position here and just grab my forearm, I've really only got two movements. I've got this movement here, which we are going to term as wrist set or wrist cock. And we've got this movement here, which we're going to call as flexion and extension. So in the golf swing, those two things are going to happen in the best golfers and in the worst golfers, but we see different movements in each of those categories, as you can imagine. So what we need to do in the golf swing, in the backswing I should say, is we need to take our wrist from its starting position and we need to work in some wrist hinge. We need to add some wrist cock. That's what enables us to create some leverage and some length in our golf swing. But we also need to move towards a little bit more of a flexed lead wrist as well. And we specifically in this video, we're talking about that lead wrist. But as you can imagine, if we get that one correct, the trail wrist is also going to function. So let's show you what those two movements would look like if we isolated them at the start. This would be my wrist set here. And you can see the curve or the shape that's in that wrist. I'm now going to rotate that club, and so I can start to flatten out the back of the wrist and the forearm. Those are the two things that we want to be happening in your golf swing. Now, obviously they don't happen at the start, they happen as we make our golf swing. So here's what we're going to do in order for you to help sense those two things. You're going to take a T-peg and you're going to place it into the glove on your lead hand. Just like this. Now, for most of you, if this is something you're struggling with, I'd like you to have those two things in place by the time the club reaches this kind of halfway back position here, my lead arm level with the ground. So what I want you to do is I want you to take your starting position to the golf ball. And when your lead arm reaches level with the ground, I want the grip of the golf club to be pointing down at the ground. And I want you to feel like the T-peg that's in the back of your hand is facing, as I look at the golf ball here, it's kind of looking at, so that's 12 o'clock, almost to 2 o'clock. So I feel that's kind of very much over here. So as I go halfway back and hold it, you can see I've got the golf club pointing down at the ground. And I've got the T-peg, to me, feeling like it's pointing out over towards 2 o'clock. So what that tells me is it tells me that I've got the correct wrist angles and I've got a good amount of wrist hinge. If I didn't have enough of wrist hinge, the grip would point towards me. If I had some wrist extension, which is definitely what we want to avoid, I feel that the T-peg points more in front of me and certainly in front of the camera. So it's very, very common to see golfers where they extend the wrist and don't set the wrists correctly. So I've got poor wrist conditions and I've got poor wrist set. So poor wrist set and poor wrist conditions means that I'm not able to generate as much speed as I'd like, and I'm not really controlling the club face. And so low speed and poor club face control is, as you can imagine, not a great recipe for good golf. However, loading the wrist correctly in the backswing, creating some good energy stored up, and having the club face under control are things that we'd like to work towards, because for the majority of golfers watching this video, that is going to help you. So what you're going to do is you're going to make some rehearsals where you're creating those feels. I'm loading the wrists and I'm controlling the club face. Loading the wrists, controlling the club face. Now from here, as I get to the top of my golf swing, those things just continue and hold. I'm not really changing anything here. So I really want to try and get those things under control very, very early. So let's go ahead and hit this one into this beautiful 9th hole here. This is the stadium course. So I'm going to make that little rehearsal. Load the wrists, control the face, and it should help me hit this ball onto that green. And it's a little left of the flag, but it's probably only about 15 feet away. So I was able to hit the ball with good power, and I was able to control the direction because I had control of the face. If you're struggling with direction, you're offline, you're struggling with distance, potentially looking at those wrists in terms of the wrist angles and the loading of the wrists can really help you achieve better distance, more control. And as I said right at the start, that's what most golfers are after in their golf swings. So before we finish this video, I have to say a huge thank you to PJ Catalunya, hosted us for our golf school, but also allowed me to film here on the course, creating this content for you. If you're in the area, well worth checking out. And also, if you're looking at a golf school, we haven't set our 2020 dates yet, but we will do over the coming months. So drop me an email and I can provide you with the information once we have it. Thank you for watching. We'll hopefully see you back here again soon.